the approach I take. It's not about, well, I got to find an editor. Well, I got to find it's no, I got to just learn what to do to make this thing exist. And that's been my philosophy ever since I was 15, 16 years old. I learned iMovie and I realized I don't need, like, if I can edit, I just really need the equipment. That's it. And it's not that expensive. It's camera, laptop, and then I realized, well, then all I need to do is just learn how to write. And then all I need to do is and this is before YouTube. Well, YouTube was technically around shortly after, but even then you can learn stuff from it. It wasn't like you could just, how do you, it was still just like random sketches and comedy and stuff, So it was really, learning stuff was not easy. And people ask me now, like, how do I learn how to do, just do it. You know what I mean? It's just because people think that there's all this, like, I didn't have any resources to learn. I had a film class, which really isn't that, it sounds more illustrious than it was. It was a classroom where we just had to sit on, we each had a computer and we had to learn iMovie individually. It really wasn't a class. It was just forcing us to be in front of a software many of you have in your home already. And, if I didn't just sit and learn the software, I probably wouldn't be doing what I am now. But yeah, I think it all begins with editing, filmmaking. Editing is the first, because that's the cooking process, right? When you're an editor, you know exactly what kind of takes you need. You know exactly what scenes you need, what shots you need, what sound you need. You know every ingredient you need to throw it together. So if you know how to edit, everything else, in my opinion, is really just like skills that you just keep doing. Oh, makeup, hair, costuming, those are things you everyone kind of knows what they need for those things. I think the more you do it, the more you're going to get better at it. And there's certain things that I know that I'll just never be perfect at, or at least if I want to do the directing, writing, like makeup, for instance. If I have a group of people on set and I don't have time, or my assistant doesn't have time to do their makeup, I'll hire a makeup artist for that day. It's knowing when to delegate versus like how much you can realistically take on. And I think, yeah, as long as I get the editing covered, everything else feels so simple. But editing is, well, except for writing. Writing is equally hard, if not tougher than editing, because writing has to come from here, and well, everything has to come from here, but writing particularly is like, if it was easy, we wouldn't be having this strikes about, it's like it is the epicenter, it's the seed of everything, but then the post seed is what ties it all back together. So it's like writing and editing are like the two, and if you can do those two things, like, don't make any excuses for the bullshit in the middle, because that's all the easy stuff. Yeah.
Do you still edit everything yourself? Everything.
I don't let anyone touch what I do.
You blew my mind. Do you remember when I came over to your apartment and you were showing me your editing process and you were doing it on iMovie?
I still do. I love conventions because I love any place where people can feel safe being their weirdest self. I'm a big advocate for people being as much of their true self as possible. In conventions, there's no judgment. You walk through those doors and everyone is in their cosplay that they worked on for weeks or months or years, these beautiful costumes. And they're not just costumes. They are representations of these people's obsessions, of their innermost love, and it's a place of vulnerability because it's not always, not everyone has the confidence to say, hey, world, I like this thing. And at a convention, it's all that people are doing. So it's an extremely safe space to just be yourself and to not feel judged about what you like or love. And it's a perk that if, the cast of what you love is there, then you get to meet them and get stuff signed. I like being a part of that because you're literally in the business of giving people happiness. People show up and they're happy to see you. I worked in Best Buy for a long time when I was a kid. It was my first job, and I got used to people in line being so miserable. They were waiting in line. They're not happy. They just want to get to you to get out of the store. So like conventions feel like the opposite of that, where people are excited to have gotten to you after waiting in line. And yeah, and on a much deeper level, conventions are really helping me psychologically, because working in retail for so long as a teenager, it really fucked me up in terms of how I saw the world, because I was seeing the world from a new perspective of like, wow, the biggest lie I was told was that when you grow up, you grow up. Like, adults were the most petulant, immature, impatient people who didn't care about you. You were just someone in a name tag and a blue shirt to get their stuff rung up and out the door. So going to conventions, it reminds me that like, no, the world is full of good people, and there are people who love each other, love you, that are, there to just have a good time, and they're not just seeing you to get out the door. And every time I come home from a convention, I'll pull up and I'll just sit in my car, and I have to just absorb. Remember how you feel. Remember like how good the world made you feel today. Remember that there's like nice people out there. So, anytime you're having a bad day, just remember this is really what the world is. Not Best Buy, not, I don't, when you're scrolling through Insta, it's like, no, those people, and they're real too. They're not like, they're people who, they're not rich or poor, or maybe they are. They're like from all over, they're not just one type of person that comes up. And so, anyway, I like conventions because they make you feel super well-rounded afterward. I don't know. I'm rambling now at this point, but I've never explored this out loud. I always felt like there was something valuable in my mind, but no one else could see. And it was very frustrating because no one would give me even the time of day to show them who I was.
When you escape from a moment that's traumatizing like that, does it go through you and you're able to just put it to rest? Or do you feel like a part of that sits with you?
All of the worst things in my life, in some ways are like trophies, because it's like, I know I can withstand that. I know that I can withstand that and still be funny the next day. Holy shit, that's a whole other thing.
You've told me before that in some ways you feel guilty for having a job that you love, living in the city of your dreams, and having a very happy life when you're constantly exposed to all the horrors of the world, and you get to do comedy.
It's easy to see how beautiful this world is that we live in, but it's so easy to see how awful it is.
I feel like comedy has a much more important place than many people give it credit for. A lot of people see it as a frivolous, two-dimensional time waster.
It's one of those things that we just take for granted, I think. I think we all need comedy. I think a lot of us live off of it without even realizing we do. Isn't that incredible? And no one teaches us to laugh. Inherently, we are humorous people, whether we want to feed into that or not. Babies laugh. We don't teach them that.
Yeah.
They don't even talk. If we're just beings of feelings from the moment we're born to the moment we die, and just toggling these different euphorias, it only makes sense that comedy is such a valuable part of any society.
I know that you are one of the most humble people that exists. I know you never talk about the amount of work that goes into each of your projects and how much love you give to every single detail. I've been there with you on set. I know you brainstorm, you write, you location scout, you cast, you star in them, you play multiple characters. When you're done, you get home, you load it onto your computer, you sit there, you edit every single frame, you post it, you do the thumbnail, you do the marketing, you do every single aspect. Would you say that you have refused to let other people in on the process and to help you with that?
I've learned how to live a life with the least amount of dependability professionally.
You don't want to depend on anyone else.
I don't need to depend on it. But sometimes I do collaborate and I lean on people. You have to, the bigger the operation gets, the more you have to trust the people, that you can't do everything yourself, but I try and do as much as I can. I like living in a world where if there's a production I want to make, I don't have to run it by some person who's about a generation distant from me that I have to then, has to green light it. I can, okay, well, I know how to build that set, or I know how to design that costume. Basically, it's just like reducing the amount of people to inhibit you from creating something that makes you happy. I still edit on the same software. I still capture sound the same way. Yeah, iMovie.
Brandon Rogers edits his videos on iMovie. Yeah. That is the most shocking thing I've ever heard.
Go fuck yourself.
No, it's an honor.
Oh, okay. All right. Here we go.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I love it. I love iMovie. I just like a simple timeline. I also have ADHD and I like to smoke weed. So it's like, I don't have time for all this buttons and gizmos of Final Cuts and Premieres. I use Premiere for my VFX, but... You
do that stuff, but the basic... outline is...
I don't like buttons. I don't like lever. When I see a software and it's all this, I think a lot of people, I think most people look at that and they learn it fine. I look at that and I go cross-eyed. It's like walking into a cockpit and trying to like imagine how a pilot possibly knows what every button does.
I told you that. That was my most shocking thing when I moved to LA. When I first met you and I came over to your house and you had millions of followers and you're editing your videos, and I'm seeing how you edit after college taught me how to edit in Avid. Like, what?
No.
Who uses Avid?
See, that's an interesting categorical thinking and consequential thinking. Categorical thinking, you're like, oh, well, I should do it this way because that's the way everyone does, and that's how I was supposed to do it because that's how I was taught. And then there's consequential thinking, which is like, what is the consequence if I just do this simply and just get what's in my head on screen? What's the fastest way to do that, regardless of should I or shouldn't I be doing it that way? And there's really no consequence to doing iMovie. As long as what you're putting on the screen looks the way you wanted it to look, who the fuck cares if you edit it on a goddamn potato?
That's literally the coolest thing.
I advocate for people to not have any shame using potato technology. Like, I love storytelling, and I find filmmaking to be the best way of storytelling. It's the only art form where you get to work with every other art form. You know, makeup, music, set design, actual paintings and fucking costumes and all this shit. You get to work with every fucking, no other art form. You get to do it. And she saw that and thought I would be good to play a character. So I didn't audition for it, but I spent at the time, like 10, 11, 12 years auditioning for it in a way with all the videos. And so I think if you're persistent at something long enough, the right person one day will see it.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah.
That was inspiring.
I think so. I really do, because like even Richard Horvitz, who is a legend, he said you can't be better than anyone at a lower level, because one day they will be handing you the parts, they'll be signing your checks, they'll be in a position to help you further. And if you're above, the people that follow you when they're very young, they can smell that. And I think that, or if you're receptive to working with them, they can smell that also. And so I know that, there are people who come up to my booth and say, I was watching you when I was 10 years old. I probably shouldn't have been. That's what everyone says. But I'm like, and here you are now, like in your 20s or whatever, and one day you're going to be a producer in your 30s and 40s and 50s, and I'm going to be an old man hoping to get parts. And I'm glad that I planted the seed early, because it's true. One day these people will be, or not even just producers, there'll be other artists that I want to work with, so anyway, I don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about now. I forgot why I got on this point, but I do think that being kind to all of your followers, especially the younger ones, will pay off.